Hello, everyone. How's it going? I hope you're all safe and staying inside and practicing your social distancing. Hang on one second. I'm gonna close the door here. So, my son has a tendency to run down and interrupt me if he hears me trying to work. So, hi, welcome to my video lecture on Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House, although I'll use the term lecture loosely because obviously we're sort of limited in tools here. I'm recording this from my basement office at home in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, where I am currently hunkered down like everybody else. I've not left the house in, except to one trip to ShopRite in about 2 weeks. I haven't done anything basically since March 10th or so. So, yeah, I'm a little stir crazy, but I'm sure we're all in the same boat here. Um, and, I mainly just hope that everybody's doing okay. As you can see, I've stopped shaving and I'm very much in a hunkered down kind of frame of mind here. But what we would have done this past week is, if we were meeting, would have been to obviously screen A Doll's House and have a discussion about it. And that discussion would involve a lot of different facets of the play and performance aspects of the play. And I don't want to overwhelm you right now with a lot of content or anything like that. And I don't want you to feel like, I mean, it's not business as usual, and we're not going to pretend it's business as usual. And my primary concern right now is that everybody makes it through the semester healthy and alive and safe. But to the extent that we can learn something about Ibsen, I'd like to do that. And so hopefully you've all had a chance to watch the play. The version of the play that I usually screen is a 1973 film version by MGM Studios that stars Anthony Hopkins, and they have a copy of it in the library. But for some reason, the library does not have that version available to stream digitally. So instead, we have to watch the 1993 BBC version, which is in many ways actually better. It's more true to Ibsen's text. It's more complete. But it's also, it's a kind of a stodgy sort of British sort of stage production put on film, so it doesn't maybe have the dynamism of the one that I usually show. But anyway, it's a pretty good performance. We One thing that, of course, when you're talking about drama as a genre, that you have to keep in mind is that it's not the same in terms of as compared to the other genres we've read, right? Poetry and fiction, drama or plays, right, are different in that they rely not just on the written word but on performance as well. Nobody writes a play for you to read it. That sort of defeats the point. Playwrights write plays so that they can be embodied on the stage. So, in watching a filmed version of it, you're at least getting more of a sense of how Ibsen wanted you to experience it than you would if we simply read it. Now, so a couple of things to say about this play. Obviously, it's a play that has some things in common with stuff we've already read before. And of course, if this were a class right now, I'd ask you the question, what does this have in common with anything we've read before? But of course, it's another work that deals with issues related to gender. And as you were watching the play, perhaps it occurred to you that we have yet again a story about a couple in which there's an obvious sort of power imbalance. And we've seen that before with The Birthmark and with Hills Like White Elephants. Nora and Torvald Helmer are our married couple, and right from the outset of the play, we get a sense of something about the dynamic at work here. Now, you might recall that in that first scene, Nora enters and Torvald comes out and he says, "Oh, I see you've been spending my money again, frittering my money away." And she's like, "Oh, I've just bought a few things that we needed." And, he sort of gives her a sort of stern lecture about the value of thriftiness and never borrowing, right? She says, "Well, we could borrow some money." And he says, no, we could never do that. We have to be thrifty and cautious with our money. And right away you get the sense that, okay, he's sort of in charge here. It's he calls it his money. And Nora is dependent on him. And that's, of course, typical for the way relationships would have worked in the 19th century. There's nothing particularly surprising about that. But Ibsen is not just interested in showing us what life was like in the 19th century, what the power dynamic was in his day. He also wants to offer a kind of challenge to it, or at the very least get you thinking about the justice or the propriety of it. So over the course of this play, we start out with Nora being sort of, we get an obvious sense of her deference to Torvald, of her submissiveness to Torvald. He says, for instance, we know that right at the outset of the play, we learn he's got this new job. He's going to be making a lot of money. Nora's very excited about this. And she's like, "Oh, I can't wait to have lots and lots of money." And he says, "Well, we've got to wait because I don't actually get my new salary until after New Year's and it's only Christmas." And she says, "We could just borrow some until then." So Nora's really hot to start spending money and to sort of start living life as an upwardly mobile, wealthier individual. But we very quickly... So your first thought is that, well, she's kind of a gold digger. She's a trophy wife, right? She only cares about money. But very quickly we learn that she's got a secret, right? And that is that she actually is in debt to this guy Krogstad, from whom she borrowed money for a trip to the south, to Italy, for Torvald's health. Torvald at some point in the past had been sick, and back in the 19th century, one of their theories of medicine was that warmer climates were better for recovering, so she borrowed money so that she could take him to Italy so that he could recover, and it worked. So in essence, according to the sort of medical knowledge of the time, she basically saved Torvald's life by doing this. But now she has this secret debt that she owes to Krogstad. She can't let Torvald know about it. One, because she knows Torvald never approves of borrowing money, and two, because she thinks he'll find it totally emasculating that she saved his life. So she's got this dark secret. She's trying to figure out how to pay off Krogstad. She's squirreling away all the money she can. She's working, little odd jobs here and there, but all in secret, while trying to prevent Torvald from finding out. And that's where the melodrama aspect, the sort of conflict of the play comes in, or I guess you could say the drama, right? Because you can't have drama without some conflict, without some angst, that's why, we still use the word drama to mean, anything that is sort of emotional or causing us distress or causing conflict. So the dramatic turn in the play is that Krogstad uses his leverage over Nora to blackmail her and say, "You need to keep Torvald from firing me from my job, or I'm going to expose you. And not only did you borrow money from me, which you're not supposed to do, but you also forged your father's signature. Your father was to co-sign the loan because women can't borrow money on their own in 1878. But Nora didn't do that. She forged his signature, and she was, I don't want to say dumb enough, but naive enough to forge his signature 2 days after he died. So it was real easy for Krogstad to sort of find the proof that she committed this forgery. So he's really got her over a barrel. She's in trouble, and she has to do what she can to prevent Torvald from firing him. It doesn't work out. Eventually, it's all exposed, and there's a big blow-up between the two of them, which surprisingly leads to Nora's liberation, as you might say. At its heart, A Doll's House is a play about challenging gender norms, not just presenting them to us, but challenging them. This family, this Helmer family, when we meet them, is structured the way a 19th century family, a patriarchal family, is supposed to be structured, with the husband in charge, with the wife deferent to the husband, with the children in a really, it's kind of odd, right? The children are very much not in the picture at all. Where are they? Who's taking care of them? Well, if you were a family of a certain class in the 19th century, you had nannies and nursemaids and people like that to take care of your children. So there's Anne-Marie, the old nursemaid, the old nanny who is Nora's nanny, who takes care of the children. So it's very sort of very different than the family structure we're used to. But at its heart, it all rotates around the authority of a patriarchal figure, a man in charge, and that's Torvald. Um, Sorry, I'm getting a call here. That's rude. Oh, just a text message. Just make sure everybody's alive. You know, these days you got to check your text messages. Okay, no, just my mom. She's fine. She's 73 years old now. She's home alone. Nobody can visit her. Nobody can see her. So, you know, not good. But just gotta stay inside. Just stay inside. Stay inside as much as you can. Um, if this were our normal cat class, you know me, I like to interject with my corny jokes here and there, but I'll try to keep things as streamlined as I can. I don't want this video to be like 45 minutes long. I'd like to keep it under 30 minutes if I can. Where were we? Oh, yeah. The patriarchal system. You know that word patriarchy, right? We've discussed it before. I need a whiteboard or something for the next lecture. I just realized I didn't be able to write things down. Patriarchy. As you can see, I'm woefully underprepared. Um, that's okay. We're all just going to do the best we can with this malarkey. Yes. So yeah, we've seen patriarchal systems before, but this is the first work, perhaps, where we're really going to see it challenged. From the very beginning of the play, where Torvald's like, "Oh, that's just like a woman to not understand money, etc." And yeah, Nora is ignorant. She doesn't really know a whole lot because she's never really been educated. But again, it's not her fault. It's a consequence of the way her society is. As the play progresses, though, we get a sense that that there's, aside from the fact that she's really anxious about what's going on with this blackmail plot, that maybe there are some cracks appearing in her willingness to accept things as they are, and that maybe Torvald isn't quite the guy she thought he was. He's all right. He's a pompous guy. He's really condescending to her. He doesn't beat her or physically abuse her or anything. He's just really dismissive of her and very controlling. We see his controlling behavior right away too, right? You remember she comes in, she's got the bag of macaroons, and she hides them, and then Torvald's like, "Were you at the bakery today? Were you at the confectioner's today?" And apparently she's not allowed to eat sweets, and so she has to hide that from him. And like, you're thinking, what kind of grown man what kind of grown woman is told she can't eat sweets by her husband? And later we find out it's because that he's afraid they'll rot her teeth. 19th century, they didn't have. These days, sometimes couples can be controlling over their partner's eating behavior, right? It's not that unusual to see, even today. Don't eat that. That's not good for you. Yada yada yada. These days, people tend to be worried about things like obesity or whatever. Nobody was fat in the 19th century, but they didn't have dentists, or at least they had dentists. They weren't worth a damn. All they could do was pull your teeth out. So Torvald really doesn't want her to eat sugar because he doesn't want her teeth to rot. Because again, what is Nora's value to Torvald? What does Nora do? Nora doesn't cook. She doesn't clean. She doesn't really take care of the children. She's not a housewife as we understand it. We have our own image or idea of a subservient wife figure from American history. It would be like the 1950s housewife. But the 1950s housewife was kind of like a domestic servant. They had to cook, they had to clean, they had to take care of the children, do all the laundry, the ironing, etc., etc. Nora doesn't do any of that. They have people for that. So what does she do? She's a decorative object. She's an ornament to his success. She is somebody he can show off. And she's not fulfilling that function if she's got rotten teeth or whatever. A very controlling Torvald who has all the power. And of course, his power, where does it come from? Where does patriarchal authority come from in this kind of system? It's like a children's show. I'll leave a space for you to answer. You can shout it at the screen. Why does he have power over her? Because he has what? That's right, because he has the money. He controls the capital. Men are the only ones that work, at least in a normal family unit. Women only work if they're young and unmarried or if they're widows, perhaps. But married women are not expected to work. So all the money flows through him, and with money comes the access to a certain kind of life that we can see that Nora, at least at the outset, is very attached to, and Torvald as well. What kind of life? A materialistic life, a life of creature comforts. They aren't upper class people. They're not aristocrats, right? They're not like the highest level. What would you call them? Right, upper middle class, kind of upper middle class, right? Because they're not born into wealth. They work for, Torvald has a job. He has a salary. He works for his money. There's somebody richer and more powerful than him that has control over him. That's the way things work in a kind of quasi-emerging capitalist system. The word that perfectly describes the social class of the Helmers, you might have learned this word before. It starts with a B, a word that describes a very materialistic, kind of upwardly mobile middle class in 19th century Europe. Some of you know it. Some of you don't. Some of you do. The word is bourgeois, right? Or bourgeoisie. You can look it up. They're this kind of bourgeoisie, bougie, we sometimes say, couple, very attached to their creature comforts and the materialistic lifestyle. And Torvald's money is what gives him access to that, and it gives him control over her. When does he lose control over her? It's the moment in the play when she realizes she no longer wants what he can give her. At that moment, his power over her vanishes in an instant. Let me tell you what I mean. So the play, we're doing a kind of crash course here on A Doll's House, right? You like my office, by the way? I got all the books. I tried to make it look as legit as possible. I even got my degree hanging up in the back. My PhD from Boston University, just so you remember that I actually am a professor, because at times it can be hard to believe it, especially when you're watching some schlemiel in his basement on YouTube. Oh, look, wait. I also got a pipe. Welcome to Dr. Salerno's Fireside Chat. Okay. So the play, all the machinations of the middle of the play of Nora trying to keep this secret. And she's got her friend Christine, who is an important figure in the play, but let's gloss over her for now. The side characters, Christine and Dr. Rank, in the normal course of affairs would have gotten their own lecture, their own class discussion. But like I said, nobody wants to watch an hour and 20-minute video. So let's just start with Nora and Torvald for now. Let's keep it. And if maybe there'll be another video at some point on this. I don't know. Maybe. Let's see what kind of feedback this one gets. For sure. All right. Despite all their machinations, though, even Christine, who happens to know Krogstad and was once engaged to him, and one of the play's great contrivances, which beggars all probability and belief, Krogstad sends this letter to Torvald with the truth, and Christine convinces him to send another one to say, forget it, I won't blackmail you, but not before the truth comes out, and Torvald finds out that Nora has not only borrowed money from Krogstad in secret, but also committed this crime of forgery. And there's this huge explosive argument, right? The version we have is pretty good. I've seen Anthony Hopkins does it even bigger and even more enraged. In fact, in the 1973 film version, he actually smacks her around a little bit, which is not in the play. That was purely an invention of the filmmakers. But in our version that we watched, it's just a lot of yelling and stuff like that. And he says things like, to think that after 8 years, the woman that I have loved should turn out to be a hypocrite and a liar, and worse still, a criminal, right? He's really hung up on the fact that she broke the law. And he tells her, she's got no moral sense, she's got no sense of duty or loyalty. He tells her that she's not fit to bring up the children, that he won't let her around the children, on and on with his rant. But he doesn't say he's going to throw her out or divorce her or anything like that, which is of course something that Nora fears. He's going to keep her around, and he says, the whole thing will have to be hushed up or whatever. We'll go on in public as we were before to keep up appearances. And the question is, why doesn't Torvald just throw her out of the house? He's so angry. She can't trust her. He doesn't love her anymore. He can't bring up the children. She's worthless. Yada yada yada. It's because there's something that Torvald cares about much more than his marriage or his domestic happiness. And that is what does Torvald care about most? His reputation. That's right. Some of you got that, right? His reputation. Torvald cares a lot about his reputation, so he can't throw Nora out. He can't have this scandal be public. He is a cog in a sort of proto-capitalist system. He's he works for a salary. He doesn't have his own money. He's dependent on others to trust him with running a bank, and he can't be seen as some kind of risky asset. Somebody with a crazy wife who's been blackmailed by an unsavory character like Krogstad, and that maybe he had something to do with it, right? Maybe he was in on the scheme. He can't let any of that out, so the whole thing has to be hushed up, right? That's what's of paramount importance to him. And the second letter comes, right? The second letter, in which Krogstad basically says Christine has, intervened on Nora's behalf, and Krogstad's like, forget it, I'm sorry. Here's the contract back with the forged signature. I'm not going to do anything. I'm sorry I did it. I'm sorry, yada, yada, yada. Just forget it. You're fine. And the first thing out of Torvald's mouth when he reads that letter is, Nora, I'm saved. Not we're saved, but I'm saved, right? You remember? I'm saved, Nora. I'm saved. And she's like, well, what about me? He's like, oh, yeah, you too. Well, that right there shows you what Torvald's concerned about, and it's not his wife being blackmailed. It's not his wife possibly going to prison. It's his wife. It's his own reputation, right? And now that's been saved. And then he's just like, then it's over, and Torvald's like, oh, well, back to normal. Let's forget it all happened. Just forget all those mean things I said. It was in the heat of the moment. I forgive you, Nora. Yada yada yada. Let's go to bed. Yeah, exactly. Which is, of course, the way a person with absolutely no emotional maturity would handle it. And that's, Torvald. Torvald doesn't understand love in the way that a mature person understands it. He doesn't understand that things just can't be unsaid, that you have to work through problems. He's just like, well, that's it. It's over. Let's go to bed. I forgive you. Life goes on. Yada, yada, yada. Nora's not having it, right? This is the moment in which everything changes for Nora, because she realizes then that her husband isn't the guy she thought he was. She thought she had a protector, somebody who loved her and wanted to take care of her. But as soon as that blackmail letter came through, the only thing he was thinking about was saving himself, not about her at all. She was worried that he was going to try to take the blame, and she was scared that he was going to do that. Not only did he not do that, he just was ready to roll over and do whatever Krogstad wanted, because all he cared about was his reputation. And something snaps in Nora, and this is the moment when it's one of the most famous things in modern drama. Nora's transformation in Act 3 of A Doll's House. She changes her clothes, she comes back out, she tells him, sit down. Doesn't ask him to sit down, tells him, sit down. And he's like, what do you see? What? He's like, sit down now. And he sits down. And from then on, it's Nora who's doing the dictating and Torvald who's listening, because what she has come to realize is that she no longer wants what he can give her. And she says, you've done me a great wrong, Torvald, right? You've kept me as a doll in a dollhouse. I'm not a real person. I've never been educated. I've never been exposed to the world. I've never really been a fully realized human being, and it's because of the way my father treated me, and it's because of the way you treat me. Not only that, but we've had 3 children together, and I don't see you as anything more than a stranger. We've never really known each other. This is the first time in 8 years of marriage that we have ever sat down and tried to discuss a serious issue together. Can you imagine that? And Torvald can't even understand. He's like, what do you mean? Why would I discuss a serious issue with my wife? Everything that seemed normal to him, all of a sudden in this moment seems utterly insane to Nora. That she's put up with it for so long. And she says that, she expected at least that the miracle would happen. That he would be her hero, that he would try to take the blame for her, and he didn't do that, right? And instead, she came to realize that he never really cared about her at all, just his reputation. And so she says something that almost no wife in 19th century Europe ever said, which is, "I'm leaving you." And let's think about this. And Torvald says, "You can't leave. I forbid it." And she says, "There's no use you forbidding me anything anymore." And the reason he can't forbid her anything anymore is because she doesn't want what he has, right? That's how he controlled her, with capital, with money, with a lifestyle, with a home and materialistic things, and a steady income and bourgeois mobility. She says, "I don't care. I don't want it anymore. I don't want anything from you." And once she says that, his ability to control her evaporates. It's an amazing thing. And what Ibsen is kind of onto here is that it really is through capital, right? Through money that women are subjugated, because society shuts them off from the means to procure it on their own and leaves them dependent on men, and in doing so strips them of their full humanity. There is some debate about this, of course, but it seems clear to me, at least, that this is a feminist work. It's one of the first great feminist works, although it was written by a man. And when it was released in 1878, it went off like a bomb. It was a huge hit, but it was also hugely controversial because it struck directly at the heart of 19th century European social order by saying to women, maybe this isn't the only lot you could have, to be the decorative object in some man's home. Maybe there's a possibility for more. And so what I asked you in the discussion question was, did you agree with Nora's decision to leave her family? And the reason it's so complicated, of course, is because she doesn't just leave her jerk ass husband. And I think that we could all get behind that. She also does what? That's right. She also leaves her children. And even today, right? Even today, that's something that's sort of beyond the pale. Today we live in a no-fault divorce society. We fully embrace the idea that a woman can leave a man for whatever reason she wants, or vice versa. But we would expect them to want to maintain contact with their children, or custody even, right? There's this expectation that women will want to keep their children, right? To take their children with them, especially out of an abusive home. Nora's basically like, I don't want you and I don't want them either. She doesn't say it in so many words, right? And Torvald's sort of incredulous. He says the most famous lines in modern drama. "You're running out," he says, "on your most sacred duties." And Nora says, "What do you think are my most sacred duties?" And he says, "Do I have to explain that to you? It's your duties, your responsibilities to your husband and your children." And Nora says, "I have other duties just as sacred. My duties to myself." In other words, I have a right to think about myself before I think about my children or my husband. And that's a little contrary to even our ethos of motherhood, right? We kind of have this feeling that mothers, even more than fathers, kind of put their children first. And it's very gendered still today. And he says, and Torvald goes on, "Before all else, you're a wife and mother." Right? In other words, your identity is tied up in your relational status, right? Your relationship to other human beings, not your own actual status, but how you relate to others. Wife, you're married to somebody. Mother, you have children, right? That is your identity. And Nora says, no, 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 no. Before all else, I'm a human being, just as you are. Or at least I must become one. Because what she realizes is that although she understands that she's entitled to full humanity, she's never had what she needs to bring it to fruition, which is education and experience. And so she walks out at him, slams the door shut, says, I don't want anything from you anymore, gives back his wedding ring, leaves him totally devastated and defeated, stunned, right? It's a great reversal, triumphant in some respects, but still, we have this nagging feeling that what about the kids, right? They're going to wake up in the morning and not have a mother. Can we justify that ethically based on her shoddy treatment, based on her desire to be a fully realized human being? And I think, when I discuss this with with classes, it usually split. Some people think that Nora's pardon my French, but some people find Nora to be a kind of heartless bitch, right? How could she do that? How could she leave her children? Why didn't she give Torvald a chance to change? I won't tell you where I stand on this. You can maybe intuit it a little bit. But when the play first premiered, people were very upset about this. The general consensus among most male audience members was just that Nora, this was unbelievable, that Nora was a villain. And Joan Templeton's article that I think I posted for you pretty much gets at that, right? About how much men have hated Nora in the past. Often because they're not paying close enough attention to the play, but still. So anyway, A Doll's House. I'm going to try to wrap this up. It's been about 30 minutes. A great, famous work of modern drama that is still interesting today because not only it doesn't just challenge 19th century norms, right? It actually is still kind of radical by our own perspective, right? The idea that a woman has a right to abandon her children and then that can be morally justified is something that we would still struggle with, I think. And the question of how justified Nora is in her actions is what I asked in the discussion forum and is going to be the linchpin of the essay question. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little talk. I miss you all very much. If you get a chance, drop me an email. You can comment on the video, whatever. I'm not doing Zoom lectures or anything like that. I don't want to do anything synchronous. I don't want to have people get together at the same place at the same time. We all have enough to worry about. But I do miss you all. I miss seeing you. And this is not nearly as fun as it would have been in class. But I hope you're all doing well. Don't stress too much about any of this stuff. It's just college. You'll all do fine. I'll give you a paper prompt at some point next week. I'll give you plenty of time to get it done, and we'll all be good. Don't worry. I'm not gonna drop the hammer on anybody. If we're showing up and we're saying something, we're winning at this point. So hopefully we'll all be back in that big ugly monstrosity of a building at 400 Paramus Road and back in come September, maybe even July if we're lucky. But until then, we have the internet. So ciao, adieu, farewell, and next week I'll drop some new stuff on you, I guess. All right, bye bye.